Yes. We're with Robert Stanley, and Robert is a correspondent for the Washington Times Investigative Radio. And earlier today, Robert reported for the Washington Times that upon examination, the newly released certificate of live birth of U.S. President Barack Obama appears forensically to be a forgery or a fraud. Is that correct, Robert?
Yes. Unfortunately, Alfred, it appears that when you open the PDF in Adobe Illustrator, that you can actually see the multiple layers or elements that were used to create this allegedly authentic certificate from Hawaii. If you want, we could demonstrate that with some of the, I printed out the different layers for your audience. Hopefully they'll be able to see this.
Yes.
This is you can see that all right?
Yes.
This is a printout of the document as posted on the White House website. Okay? Now, you can begin to see, it's called toggling off. I just basically turned off some of the elements or layers in the document, and you can begin to see, so if you look where some of these white areas are, some of the information is now missing. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Okay. What would be some of the information that is missing on that particular toggle?
They're all separate, but we have the type of occupation is gone, the date accepted by local registrar is gone, the signature and the certification at the very bottom is gone. It's just a white spot down there.
Okay, oh, right, sure. I can see that. So,
okay,
what exactly does that mean for those of us who aren't familiar with the PDF Illustrator technology?
Let me give you a little bit more examples here first.
Okay.
Now you can see how much of the document is actually blank.
Right.
I turned off even more of the layers, and you can see here's just one separate element that is called the layer. That one layer is separate right there.
Right.
Okay, but everything else is pretty much turned off. And then this is the final example I have. You see the background, the colored security code background is now missing?
Yes.
That was the separate layer.
Yes.
Okay, so now if I was to combine all of those layers I just showed you by compressing them down into one single file, you would get this what you see right here. It's got the colorful background. It's kind of a faded green, but it has the security watermark in there.
Right.
Okay, so that's how you create something in either Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop. You mix multiple layers, and when you're done, you're supposed to flatten them all down into one document. Unfortunately, for the people who created this fabrication, they forgot to collapse or flatten the layers.
Now, why is it that whoever did this, and we won't get into questions of how this made its way onto the White House website, why do you think that such an obviously deconstructible forensic forgery was manufactured to make its way onto the White House website? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
There's only a couple possibilities. Either Mr. Obama really does have something to hide, or somebody created a fake version and put it on official White House website to cast aspersion on his character. Basically, a character assassination.
I see. Has there been any response so far from the White House?
Not that I know of, but I'll tell you, well, actually there was. The document when first posted on Wednesday was different from the document that they posted on Thursday using the same link. The difference was that the resolution of the The document on the second version was actually a much lower resolution. And then that night, somebody must have alerted them that there was a problem with the document, and they broke the link. They took it down off of the White House website. I was alerted by people in the media in my circle who said, "Wow, what what happened to the link? They clearly took it off the official link." So I looked at the White House website and I found that there is still a link up there at a different location. It's sort of a secondary link, basically, is what it is. So they didn't take it completely down. I think that they're just doing damage control. They're scrambling. They don't even realize how bad it is. At least within the administration, not everybody's on the same page here. And so, but I also know that thousands of people have downloaded the document as originally posted.
So we're still in the phase that this may have been some malefactor, that we don't know who the malefactor was who created this document and handed it over to the White House. But it does appear to bear an authentic state of Hawaii seal.
It says the state registrar, but it's odd. Unlike the first birth certificate that they released, this one has no seal on it.
I see. So
there's a lot of in the data alone, people have been picking apart the data, the inconsistencies in the data on this alleged certificate of live birth, which is fine. I mean, but that's all theoretical. It's not proven yet. What we're discussing here is an absolute scientific fact. Well, let's go back to what we were talking about earlier. The National Review Online has tried to say that this is the reason there's layers in this document is because it's an artifact of scanning through OCR, which is optical character recognition. It's a program I've used for many years, and I've never seen this what they're claiming to be an artifact. And the other reason I find that completely false is that you only use OCR if you want to edit a document like this. You would never do something like that for scanning an official document. It would just be a JPEG file, right?
Right. Now, have the hospital officials or the any of the officials from the state of Hawaii birth certificate registry said anything about the obvious forensic fraud in this document?
Not that I know of. I got up very early this morning to help break the story. It really only surfaced yesterday, Thursday morning. Today is Friday as we do this interview. It's now Friday afternoon, East Coast time. People are still getting the news on this. So I suspect we're just at the very beginning of this. There probably, I would be very surprised if there isn't some sort of congressional investigation. The FBI should be involved. The media is going to have to play catch up on this. And the other problem is the mainstream media basically has an agenda here politically. They don't want to see Barack Obama smeared like this. So typically, I think they're going to be hesitant. I think they're going to try and dismiss it as nonsense initially. But within the following weeks ahead, there's just no way that this story is just going to die and people are going to be able to sweep it under the rug.
Now, some people say that this is a sideshow and a red herring to set up Donald Trump as a leading Republican contender, which divides the Republican opposition and guarantees Obama an electoral victory. What do you think of that argument?
Well, it's an interesting theory. Mr. Obama has spent over $1 million keeping people away from, or trying to prevent people from forcing him legally to release something that, it really, it shouldn't be a big deal like this. He's been acting like he's got something to hide prior to this. Yes, it's just, I think it's interesting that Mr. Trump ultimately he created enough question in people's mind, from my understanding, that the public polls that the White House is often doing showed that people were starting to doubt in large numbers whether or not Mr. Obama really was born in America. So that is allegedly why they decided to release the birth certificate. So,
right. So do you think we have another potential Richard Nixon here?
yeah, that's the analogy I thought of, and we discussed earlier today on Washington Times Radio. However, I would say that if all of this is accurate, the way I'm reporting it, if this is true, I would say this is much larger than Watergate in its scope and implication. And I fear for the nation, honestly, because I worry that the public trust has been violated once again, and what little trust is left could evaporate and make. I mean, we're in uncharted waters here. You can compare it to Watergate, but honestly, I don't think something like this has never really happened before, especially if it turns out Mr. Obama really wasn't born in the United States.
Well, let's look at an alternative possible scenario that we've been reporting on for over a year, and that is the secret DARPA CIA Project Pegasus Quantum Access Tesla Technology Time Travel Project, in which we have a whistleblower, Mr. Andrew D. Bashago, who's a Washington State lawyer who was a childhood participant in that project and who was a witness to the application of secret quantum access time travel to pre-identify U.S. presidents, and who was present at a dinner after which occurred after Presidents George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush were told they would be U.S. president. George W. Bush was about 20 years old, and he then entered a secret training program. And Mr. Bashago says that he met Mr. Obama in 1982 in Los Angeles after he returned to meet former classmates from Occidental College. He was then at Columbia. And Mr. Obama stated that he knew he was going to be U.S. president, a future U.S. president. In other words, he had been informed when he was about 18 years old by the secret program. So maybe this is a kind of a red herring to protect the fact that the CIA pre-identifies U.S. presidents by 20 to 30 years, and in effect has a CIA dictator in office, which they had in George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and now Barack Obama. What do you think of that concept?
Well, it's an interesting idea, but I'm not. There's no way to prove it, as far as I know. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that shows that Barack Obama's mother and his adopted father had connections to the CIA, but and other people have tried to tie Mr. Obama himself to the CIA when he was in college. So I really don't know. Other people are trying to say that, and this sounds really wild, but they're saying that he is not even from this world. That movement is called Earthers. I don't know if you've heard that term. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new one. Well, there is very sound evidence, and in fact, there's a 30-page research paper by investigator Wayne Madsen that shows that his grandmother and his grandfather, his mother, his father, end of quotes, and his stepfather were all CIA connected. His grandfather may have been a CIA case officer in the Beirut CIA station.
Yeah.
His grandmother was employed by the Bank of Hawaii, where she operated the CIA bank accounts for Southeast Asia and Indonesia, paying off assets.
Yeah, it's very suspicious.
And so you have Barack Obama appears to be a third generation CIA family. And so this is a perfect family into which you can introduce any sort of a plant, be that plant a clone, be he the illegitimate son of Malcolm X or any other, all of the other rumors.
Well, it's not Malcolm X. It would be Frank Davis.
And there is one that says that he's the illegitimate son of Malcolm X.
Really?
Also, yes.
Well, no, the picture
actually he squares up with the physiognomy of Malcolm X also. But all of these are what they call in the trade, in the intelligence trade, legends. Now, Barack Obama first used the Social Security number of a man who was born in 1890, received his Social Security number in 1986 in 1976 in Connecticut, and and died in 1980 in Hawaii. So and one UK police investigator says that he has 27 Social Security numbers. So it sounds more like a CIA legend, and that he could be what they call a hothouse experiment. He's a CIA plant that has been delivered into a third-generation CIA family. That's one alternative.
Well, there's a lot of questions about his life, and clearly, various people have been protecting him and guiding him or handling him along the way.
Right. You as a reporter have an extraordinary position because you understand both what we call the matrix 3D politics, and at the same time you've done original reporting with regard to the extraterrestrial presence. You've had the U.S. Capitol Police leak to you UFO and reports of UFO encounters over the restricted airspace over the U.S. Capitol.
Yeah.
What is your instinct as a reporter at this time as to who is Barack Obama and where this story is going to go?
Okay, let's try a little more visual here, just for your audience. Let's see if we can do this. The first book that I wrote is called Close Encounters on Capitol Hill. That's took me a couple years to write. The second book is just coming out in May of this year, Covert Encounters in Washington, D.C. This is the culmination of a 6-year investigation of UFO and extraterrestrial activity in Washington, D.C. So when you ask me that question, I have spent thousands of hours studying the nonsense that goes on in Washington, D.C. and trying to make sense of it. And essentially what I found is that the inner circle, the power players really as they were, basically all center around the Vatican. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what I found.
Around the Vatican?
Yep.
That's extraordinary. Could you parse that out just a bit more?
The conclusion of the second book is 100 pages long, Alfred. And to summarize what I've discovered about negative entities in D.C. that apparently have a covert relationship with the elite is pretty extraordinary. If I could summarize it. But I'll tell you, look, there's a lot of clues in the way that the people know about the design of Washington, D.C. is very geometric and very purposeful. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is an attraction there. It was done by design to attract and welcome certain types of extraterrestrials that are very manipulative and secretive to Washington, D.C. As part of a covert agenda.
Right. So that what you're saying is that whoever Barack Obama may be, and at this point we have to be agnostic because what we have is a smoking gun in terms of the newly revealed forensically fraudulent birth certificate. But what you're saying is that all interpretations should be on the table.
Well, especially when I have over 900 eyewitness accounts of UFOs and or extraterrestrials visiting Washington, D.C. in the past 60 years.
So are you saying that you have that there is, oh, you were calling them the Earthers, and that is the theory that Barack Obama, in fact, may be either a hybrid or an extraterrestrial visitor?
That's a possibility, and or what I suggest in the conclusion of my book, hate to give this away, but I might as well, is that there are certain individuals, certain humans, let's call them the elite, that have a covert relationship with certain negative, manipulative extraterrestrials because they feel that they are gaining some sort of advantage over the rest of us, that they certainly have access to other technologies or information that they wouldn't normally have. Yeah, you might have heard this term before, Beltway fever or Potomac fever.
Sure.
Okay. That is a term for people that spend, as soon as a normal person goes to Washington, D.C. and goes into that inner circle they call the Beltway, their attitude changes dramatically. People have noticed this and documented it over the years. And how it's tied to the Vatican is this. They call it possession.
I see.
All right?
I see.
So, I know this sounds crazy. I admit it. But that's the implication that from the analysis that I've done over the past 6 years. And I didn't have any preset concept of this. I was just trying to get to the bottom of it. I wanted to really understand how come UFOs were showing up so many times in Washington, D.C., in a place where they're not welcome, where the media refuses to acknowledge this, the government won't admit it. There's clearly, and again, this is why the title of the book, Covert Encounters in Washington, D.C. It is all covert, but purposeful.
Very, very interesting. We're just about at the end of this segment, and
okay.
I just wanted to mention that we're using both a Skype internet connection and a cell phone connection because of the interference with this broadcast. So that this has been a very real kind of journalistic communication.
Right.
Where do you think this story is going to go over the next couple of months?
I'd hate to speculate too far about this.
Or over the short term, say.
Yeah, I think there has to be a congressional investigation. That's the first thing. Whatever the intelligence communities do, FBI, CIA, that would probably be not in the public domain. But I think that people are in a position, especially under the Constitution, we still have a right to demand certain things and protect ourselves from these elitists who clearly want to covertly control everyone and everything on this planet. So it's incumbent upon everybody to do whatever they can, write letters, emails, phone calls, put pressure on your elected representatives as well as the media. The media is losing viewership on a regular basis, and it's partially because they're not telling the truth. So if an average citizen or a group of citizens is to contact the headquarters of, let's say, CNN or something and say, why aren't we seeing this information in full, it definitely has an impact on them.
Well, Robert Stanley, thank you very much. I hope that we can call on you from time to time as this important story continues to break. Thank you.
Okay. My pleasure. You're welcome, Alfred.